MashaAllah. When shall we start? Yeah? Okay. Okay, do a countdown. Okay, yeah? Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session on social media. We have an amazing group of guests here who will share their insight and a lot of the, they'll give you some of the tips and some of the learnings they've had over the years. I'm going to introduce our guests here. But before I do, I just want a quick show of hands. Who here is active on social media? Raise of hands. Wow. Who's more Twitter? Do we have any Twitter? Not okay. Interesting, huh? Who's more into Instagram? Okay. Facebook? See, it's very different. Okay, so what we'll do? We'll explore some of the issues that surround social media, some of the advantages, the disadvantages, some of the social issues that relate to social media. We all know that social media is changing the way people think and communicate, and it's actually transforming the whole landscape of communication. So we're going to be talking about all of these, but what we'll first do is we'll go around and I'll have the social media influencers introduce themselves in a couple of lines, a couple of sentences going around this way, just to introduce their networks and also what their specific strategy is towards social media. Freya, shall we start with you?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Freya Jaffer, and I started Abu Dhabi Q&A in 2012. And I have a video actually which we'll play in a little while. We have about 37,000 members now. I also have Abu Dhabi Property and Middle Eastern Ladies Lifestyle. Now Q&A is the beast of all my groups. We get over 4,000 people a month, and it's a very simple model, question and answer.
And you started a new group as well recently, right? You started a few groups recently.
Yes, Middle Eastern Ladies Lifestyle. It's like an online lifestyle magazine for women, and the admins provide the content. We don't outsource it from anywhere, so we run it.
Okay. Farrukh, do you want to talk about your networks?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good evening. My name is Faris Naeem, and just to, in summary, introduce myself, I'm one of the first business bloggers from Abu Dhabi, and I completed 11 years of blogging on 26 January 2017. Wow. So I was one of the first people who was doing social media before there was social media. And other than that, of course, the other numbers you can see, I'm on Instagram around 60,000 followers and on Twitter about 50,000 followers. And hopefully, as this meeting proceeds, our discussion, I would be happy to give you tips on any of those social media platforms on how to build a following and what are the things you should and shouldn't do.
What was the first one you started off with, Farrukh? I think you were first Twitter, right? And then you moved on to your other...
Well, the first thing that I started with, as I mentioned, was blogging because the other things didn't really exist. Mm-hmm. When Facebook came on, you couldn't get onto Facebook unless you had a .edu email. So unless you, it started with Harvard, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So I knew about Facebook, wanted to be on Facebook, but couldn't be on Facebook. Oh. So as the platforms kept coming, I was among the early adopters. And even currently, I very quickly moved to platforms. There is an early adopter advantage to it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I'm also very quick to leave. For example, I was one of the earliest people to leave Google+, right? Because I didn't see the future in that.
Interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. First, we want Nicola to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. How are you today? I'm Nicola, Nicola Henderson-Hall. I do a couple of things. I own a digital marketing company, and we're all about helping you get rid of the overwhelm that goes with social media. Your daughter's waving. You know how we often... Like we were just asking who's on what platform. It can be overwhelming deciding which platform you should be on for your business. So we help you sort of declutter, help you get clear about your picture and where you want to go. The other thing I do is I'm a podcaster. I've been podcasting for a couple of years now. I don't know if anybody here listens to podcasts. Yay, there we have it. Yay. Podcasting is still very new in this region. I've been doing it for a couple of years. I've been able to achieve over 100,000 downloads on my podcasts. And what I podcast about is I interview women entrepreneurs in the Middle East because I think there are amazing women out there that need to tell their story. So that's my journey so far. I'm also the creator of Muscat Where Can I Find? I used to live in Muscat for 5 years. Similar to what Freya has. I started it back in 2010. Same concept, helping people find what they need by and finding what you're looking for. So that's my story. Nice to meet you guys.
And we have Cristina also, who is... Cristina, introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Cristina, and I talk about LinkedIn, one of the most misunderstood and underrated social media platform out there. But if you know how to use LinkedIn, it's really a gold mine. In UAE alone, there are 3 million professionals on LinkedIn, and I'm talking about high net individuals. The decision makers are on LinkedIn. So I have a company page on LinkedIn with 90,900 followers. So remember that people follow you because you give them value. So what is it that you have that you are willing to share that people will be very interested in? So my reach on LinkedIn is quite high. On my DIWA post, it got a reach of 260,000. So it gives you really good impression rate. And it is also on LinkedIn that I meet really interesting people, like high net profile individuals. Here I met Al Razuki, and he is the General Director, Smart Government of Dubai. And when I wrote about this guy, he really, my impression rate went crazy, you know, so it went as high up to 600,000 impressions on LinkedIn alone. So that's organic reach. So the engagement or the social chatter that that's on LinkedIn was also very high. So that was one of the reasons that a lot of people followed UAE DNA. So on LinkedIn, really, it's about your story. What's your story? So what is it that you want people to know about you? So you really have to answer the question, who are you? If you are able to define this, then LinkedIn is really the best place to establish your personal brand. And what is a personal brand? It is really your reputation.
Great. Thank you, Cristina, for that. Emkwan, can you talk about yourself and your networks as well?
Yeah. Okay, so I am a content creator on social media and also a YouTuber on YouTube. I have 2 channels. One channel that's devoted to reviews, and we cover technology, luxury, watches, cars. The other channel is a vlog channel, which is basically vlogging life as expats out here in the United Arab Emirates. I have my wife and my son who appear on the vlogs as well. The 2 channels, between them combined, we have around about 45,000 subscribers, just under 10 million views. And I've been doing YouTube. I kind of work with brands to tell stories about products and make a narrative, make it interesting. And that's what I do. Yeah.
Thanks, Emkwan. Now the big question everybody wants to know is how? How do you do it? How do you achieve followers? How do you bring them in? Is it the topics? Is it the timing? You know, there has to be a strategy towards this. Do you want to tackle this first, Farrukh?
Let me tell you how I got my first following. And this goes back to one of the first posts on my blog, which after 11 years continues to be the post that draws the maximum traffic. And there's a message in there. When I posted my first blog post, I used to be a copywriter in advertising, and I got a person from the United States asking me, how can I get a copywriter job in the United Arab Emirates? And my next post, instead of answering to his comment in a small little box there, I created a post just for this person saying, and the heading of that was, how to get a copywriter job in Abu Dhabi. So how do you build a following? What do you think happened? whenever someone was searching for a job as a copywriter in Abu Dhabi, there came a time when the first, among millions of pages, the first result for that was my blog post. And then I started looking at what were the people asking, what were the people looking for that I could provide as information. So I think more than likes and comments, what really matters, the metric you should be keeping an eye on is how many people are you offering value to? And what do your readers and audience need that you can uniquely provide? So if you're someone who understands food, you talk about food to people who want to know about food. I was a person in advertising, and 11 years ago, I was showcasing how people in the advertising industry were creating award-winning ads. And over the years, I came to a point where there were creative directors of advertising agencies coming to me saying, hey, can you post about a vacancy we have? And there were people coming and saying, hey, do you know any jobs? So I became the bridge between people who were offering opportunities and people who were looking for opportunities. And the message here that I also want to say is, no matter where you are placed, there is something that you can share with others that they might find valuable. So the first exercise in starting to be somebody with an influential voice, the first exercise is to see what are you passionate about and start sharing that. And find like-minded people who find value in that. Those will be your followers and fans.
Freya, do you have the same principles that Farrukh is talking about when you build your communities on Facebook?
Mine's a little different. It's more community-based because it was founded on what I needed. I found there was a gap in the market for information which was accurate and up-to-date. Now, what I find is how to keep I call them personal ambassadors. I have meetups, I connect to my members, and they share, and they actually promote me. So I like people, I find them very interesting. So my members, I think, can sense that. So you have to be very honest and present yourself in an honest form. That is the most important thing, along with finding, obviously, a gap in the market, connecting to your members, connecting them. And with these little kind of connections you make, that's your personal ambassador for you.
Do Facebook groups ebb and flow depending on like the time and the circumstances, maybe the social circumstances around?
Interestingly, in Abu Dhabi, when the weather is very bad, I get the highest amount of joining requests. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of requests. When it's very hot, people are stuck at home. So the extremes in weather is a huge dictator. So often I will look at weather reports. Now, you'd never think of that, but weather reports helps a lot to dictate to me who's going to be in their house, in the laptop, on Facebook.
Freya, tell us about your audiences. Are they in the UAE? Are they outside of the UAE? How do you build your audiences, and how do you sustain them and nurture them continuously? Nicola. I'm sorry, Nicola.
Well, I have a couple of communities, and my main one is in Muscat, and then I have one here, Abu Dhabi. Where can I find? Muscat. Where can I find? And then I've actually got some in Spain, and then it's been replicated by other people that have been members of the group, and they've taken it to their cities, and over time we just became a space where everybody was helping everybody. The core driver of that was the community, not me. People would ask the questions. People wanted to know from people in the community how they could get something.
And with you, I know, Nicola, you travel and you go from place to place. So do you take those groups with you? I think maybe these days it doesn't matter where you live, right?
Yeah, it very much doesn't matter. I live here. I live in Dubai, actually. But my primary group's in Muscat. I go to Muscat. I still see people there. We're very much connected. I come to Abu Dhabi. I see all you guys and new friends today. So it's just part of it. Yeah.
Interesting. Emkwan, tell us about your audiences and how. What kind of videos do you produce, and how do you know what topic to produce for your audiences?
So, like most of my audiences, the two channels that I have, they have slightly different audiences. But most of the audiences tend to be from the United States. I mean, going back to Nicola's point about it being international, So most of them are from the United States, United Kingdom, and then we fall into the GCC, Saudi Arabia.
So you have those metrics. You know where your audiences are.
Exactly. And just the initial question where Farrukh started off about where do you start off? If you're thinking about starting off, it's really important to remember that, just having an idea. I mean, when I started off YouTube, I actually started off because back in the days, do you remember Blackberries? Remember when we used to have Blackberry phones? Mm-hmm. Seems like a long time ago. But at that time...
I still have my BlackBerry.
At that time, when I was a student in London, there was a hack that somebody sent me through one of the forums. Mm-hmm. And they said that this is a way of getting BBC iPlayer on your BlackBerry without having to adjust the sizing because the phones were different sizes and this, that, the other. I thought it was a great idea. I put the video up on YouTube, and I think that was around about December time. I just wanted to help people out. Later on, when I went back to it, I think it had about 15,000 views. Wow. A week later, I had a phone call from a PR company that managed BlackBerry who said, look, we've got some phones, we love what you've done. We want to use that video at a developer conference, but we want to give you a BlackBerry. And that was amazing, like a free phone, back in those days. So that's how it started off. And it's just progressed. And I think that's what if you're thinking about starting, having an idea, implementing that idea is going to be useful.
Is it mostly about like hacks, how-tos that really work more than anything?
It started off with technology. So it started off like covering reviews, unboxings, this latest iPhone. Like, for example, there's the iPhone Red at the moment, reviewing that, talking about that. And then it's progressed into sort of making it a bit more entertaining, more narrative-based. So telling a story around a product, telling a story around an event, and sort of educating consumers about products in a different way. And you have to constantly adapt, especially online. It's all about constantly adapting, changing. So that question about where does the inspiration come from, it comes from trends, and it also comes from input that subscribers and viewers give you.
So you're constantly listening to what they're saying back to you.
Exactly. My main, as I mentioned before, the bread and butter, the main platform that I have is YouTube, and then social media, so Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, are almost like the water coolers that I use to interact with viewers. They might say, look, the last video was boring, or you spoke too much, or whatever. So I'll take that feedback and then amend and adjust.
Interesting. Christina, your audience is perhaps, the most different from all of the other audiences because it's the business audience. And the value for each person, is much higher. Right, Christina?
Yes. The beauty with LinkedIn is you can really target who you want to connect. Like you can really engage with these people. And that's the difference with all other social media platforms.
So when you say engage, you mean like the discussion back and forth after you post something?
Directly you can talk to the people when they become your first degree connections. You can just really talk to them, like you become friends with them. Like
and Snapchat as well. Interesting. And I think a lot of them are
targeting to high-profile people. Like, who do you want to engage?
So if you are a business person, you think it is LinkedIn?
It's LinkedIn for me.
In terms of targeting as well?
In terms of targeting, because LinkedIn, that's where you learn, and the industry, it tends to group these people in the same industry, and you learn from each other.
And in terms of the audience, your audience, are they mostly UAE?
I have been targeting on LinkedIn, like 50% of my followers are UAE. So that's really, really hard targeting. And 30% of that are GCC, and the 20% are from other countries. So basically on LinkedIn, you really have to know who you really want to connect with, because that eventually will be where you want to have business with.
If anyone has questions, sure. If anyone has questions, please let me know. Raise your hands, and we'll come to you. But I want you to comment on that, and also the other thing, Farrukh, also is in terms of the kind of data that is being gathered. Do you get much more targeting with LinkedIn versus Facebook? Also in terms of the advertising component, the paid part. Please comment on that.
So one thing I would like to say about LinkedIn, and Christina has actually mastered that, which is there is a category of people that you cannot connect with on any other platform.
Yes.
Okay?
Exactly.
So Christina's maybe 500 connections on LinkedIn or even 100 connections on LinkedIn could be better than my 50,000 on Instagram, because those 100, and I'm sure they are, she's connected to, I think, at least 50 to 100 CEOs in the UAE.
800 CEOs on UAE alone.
And they talk to you, they engage.
Yes, they engage. This is how I met really very high profile people. You meet them and they will just ask you for coffee and meat, and they also want what you can give them, like teach me how to do this. They will ask.
So there is a plus and minus to that, which is, you have access to people who might never ever allow you on Facebook, because they're just sharing with family and friends. Imagine any CEO of a company, right? And you send him a friend request and you're a stranger. That might not happen. So industry-wise and CXO level, CEOs, CFOs, CTOs, that's one thing. But the downside is that you can't share fun stuff with them. You mostly have to be business. And another downside is that I'm connected to a CEO whose company I work with. So he's not seeing my Facebook and Twitter, but he's definitely seeing everything I'm putting on LinkedIn. So that's the other side of it. And you asked me a question as well.
Yeah, it was just about the targeting in terms of campaign targeting.
In terms of targeting, I have run ads on, I think, every platform that allows ads. And the worst platform, I'm just being very honest about it, the worst platform, whether you're a business or an individual or content creator, to put your money in at this time is Twitter. The worst value for your money. Okay, so if anyone on Twitter or who's from Twitter or associated to Twitter, I can give you the reasons why. We can have a chat later. And the best platform, the best value for your money, even if you're starting with $5 or $10, is Facebook. There is no platform in the world which gives you the level of segmentation and targeting that Facebook gives you. I can target someone who's 35 to 40 years old, who loves pizza and loves ice cream and lives in a street in Abu Dhabi. I can target that person. No other platform lets you do that.
We'll go to a question here. There was a question here. Okay.
Hi. I know that Farrukh said that you've been doing this for 11 years. But I'd be curious to know how many years everybody else has been doing this, and that will lead into another question. If you could just tell me how many years you've been...
Yeah.
So I've been on YouTube for about, messing around with it for about 5 years now. Yeah.
3 years in UAE.
7 years with Facebook, about 4 with Twitter, and podcasting about 2.
What's your follow-up question?
My follow-up question is that nowadays there's so many people creating content, and there's so many people creating the same content. How do you then breach into that? I find that my difficulty with social media is not that I'm not creating content and I'm not up to date on how to engage people. It's that you're drowned out by so many people creating content that isn't maybe as high value as yours. And unless you get a mention by someone who's pretty big, how do you get seen?
Nicola, you want to do that? Okay.
I'll just quickly answer that because I also am a social media trainer and consultant for businesses and individuals. And the biggest problem and the biggest mindset issue that I see is a content creator or a business comes to me and all they think all that you need to do is create the content. And what I teach to them is creating the content. I know this as from bloggers' experience from 11 years back. Creating your content is just 20% of the time. The rest 80% is promoting your content. Okay? And that includes reciprocity. So if everybody here is just creating content and there's one person among us who goes out and engages with his readers, goes to their blogs and reads stuff, goes to their content and appreciates it. And this was told to me by Robert Scoble, who has 3 million followers, I think, across platforms. That reciprocity is very important. Okay, so content creation, guys, is not enough. She's right. Everybody's creating content. Why should I listen to anybody else, right? So people become loyal when you build connections, and it has to be two-way. It just can't be you're just sending stuff out. Nobody cares.
Emkwan, do you want
It has to be a connection between people,
okay.
and that's why you see a lot of YouTubers. They have a lot of sessions where Casey Neistat, there are some sessions where all he does is he opens, hey, there's this friend of mine or fan of mine who's sent me this. He sent me this. Why do you think he's doing that? Right? Right? So he's got like 100,000 views of my name being, called out because I sent him like a small sticker. So, it has to be engagement, not just content creation.
I will also add to that, don't be shy to repeat your content. Just because Farrukh might see it means I might not see it. So don't be shy about replicating. And when you do replicate, maybe adjust the sort of post comment, change the action point in it to reference a different point of the content that you're sharing. So it's like anything. You
We'd like to welcome Sheikh Nahyan. Welcome, Sheikh Nahyan. Emkwan, you want to comment on that as well?
What platform are you thinking of specifically?
I think personally, from personal experience, I started on Facebook. I'm not interested in it anymore. I think it's too much unnecessary advertising. It dilutes content from creators. So Instagram for me, I'm not much of a tweeter because I generally just don't have random things to say. Instagram for me is probably the main platform that I would use.
Okay.
Or blogging.
Yeah. So I mean, like when I started off YouTube, I used to wear a mask, and it was insane the amount of attention that got. Now I did that because originally I would do unboxing videos, so there was no need to show my face. Camera was on the product and it would focus on the product. But then what happened was in the comment sections, I started reading people's commentary about who is this guy, where is he from? He's got a British accent, but is he Asian, is he this or that? So somebody said to me, play on that. So I started wearing a mask. Now, when I first started off my YouTube channel, at the beginning, it worked well, but as you grow and as you start dealing with brands and dealing with agencies, you can't go into a business meeting with a mask on. So you've got to try and adapt and change, but I think it's really crucial to get a couple of things right. The first thing is try and produce content which is original. So let other content that is out there, let it inspire you, but try and see how you can put your twist on it. I mean, like, for example, the iPhone 7 Plus or the new red iPhone that everybody's talking about, there's going to be thousands and thousands of videos unboxing that. But you've got to think of a way of how you can be unique and bring something unique to that. That's the first thing. The second thing is do it consistently enough, find a niche so that you become an expert at that. That's really important because
I think it's important also for you to have a very distinct personality, right?
Distinct personality.
I just add also you have to be very comfortable with the platform you're using because you may be excellent on Facebook, but you have no idea on Instagram, so you could not do justice to yourself. So you have to find the platform you're really comfortable in. For example, I use Facebook because I feel I can connect to people really well. I love talking to my members. I will offer little, bits of advice to them. That works for me, because I'm very people-orientated, and my group works because I engage with them. So it's very important. You've got the content, like my members provide the content. I allow them that platform. I engage with them. And the thing is with the Facebook group, as an admin, it's very important to connect with your members. You can't just have, there's Facebook groups with 300,000 members. But if an admin is not present and active and recognizing their members, the engagement is very, very low. So
How about,
find your, where you're comfortable.
How about the role of social media in developing social causes, in supporting, responsible citizenry and really contributing to the social aspects of the community? Do you want to communicate? I know you have some a story, Farrukh. Maybe you can.
I'll just say a quick snapshot. Yeah, because mine is a Facebook group, I've managed to kind of close the gaps between different nationalities, men, women, different ages. I try and highlight the similarities we have, and I think that's why it's working so well. It's not just one nationality or one type of group. So yeah, for me, I've connected them, and that's how I feel we're doing community work over there.
One thing I've noticed on social media, and I talk about it a lot, is people say bad news travels fast. But if you see a lot of viral videos and things that are going really big these days are things which are stories of hope. Now, the big media, the mainstream media might not be showing you. In mainstream media, we say if it bleeds, it leads. So the more blood there is in the story, that's what you see on TV or newspapers, mostly globally, right? However, in social media, which is common people like us, what really goes viral these days is what breaks the negativity, okay? And I'll give you an example of that, and that's what Sana's talking about. If you're an influencer, or even if you're not an influencer, but you have a story of hope, story of lifting people up, story of inspiration. I'll give you an example. So I travel in taxi, I don't drive. So I was traveling in a taxi, I always talk to these people, and I talked to this gentleman. As soon as I started conversation, I just noticed that the man wasn't sounding like somebody who spent a lot of time on the road. And I asked him, what do you do? Brother, what do you do? And he tells me, I'm a taxi person. I said, no, what did you do before being a taxi person? He said, actually, I was a chef in a 5-star hotel in Abu Dhabi. Okay, man, so what's your story? Like, what were you doing? What brought you here? And it's a good journey, right? These people get something to smile about. And his story apparently was that he was working for one 5-star hotel and another 5-star hotel, and one of the restaurants closed, and he had to quickly arrange something before his visa runs out. So he had a license. He said, okay, what the hell? We'll just go and start driving a taxi for a while. And I said, do you mind? I'll take a little bit of your time. Do you mind if I just open my Facebook and we have this chat again? I'll just ask you questions and you just answer them. And I asked him the same question. So what do you do? What's your story? And are you still interested in becoming a chef again? And he says, yes, of course. I love preparing tortillas and this and that. I said, okay, guys, everybody who's watching, and I have like thousands of people on my Facebook, I said, everybody who's watching, if there's someone who finds interest in this story, just send me a message. Guess what happened? The story got picked up by the news, mainstream. And it was published like a full page in Khaleej Times, and the newspapers and the journalists started coming back, and then people started messaging me saying, can you send me a CV of this guy? Right? What does it take? It's just a conversation with a human being,
So I think, Farrukh,
it can be
with
as simple as
social
that.
media, you can actually have dialogue with everyday people. And
Sure.
everyday people can have a voice as well.
We're all everyday people. Everybody has a story to tell. One of the things when I'm teaching social media to people, how to tell a story. There is one page out there where there's one man making a difference, unlike anybody else. His name is Brandon Stanton. He had been invited by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed for the Social Media Influencer Summit. His page is called Humans of New York. You go to this page, Humans of New York, and he just meets people on the street. Allah has given him a gift of speaking to somebody for like 10 minutes and getting out a story, and he puts it out there. He's helping the refugees of Syria and this and this. He has President Obama coming and not just engaging in comments, but also helping the refugees. There were cases which came out of that group, and people who were helped. There was a scientist who was a Syrian refugee, and he had cancer, and he had nobody to help him. Brendan Stanton took his picture, told his story, and in the end, he ended up in America with universities, fixing his cancer, which was, I think, not very serious, and giving him the opportunity to make patents and innovations again. One man on the street with a camera and Facebook.
Emkwan, how can
social
we...
influence can do.
Thank you, Your Highness. Emkwan, how can we use social media for social good?
I mean, give you an example. One of the channels that I run is Emkwan Vlogs, and that shows life for expats here in the United Arab Emirates. And it's always remarkable because there are certain elements of the UAE lifestyle that we show. For example, clothing, the generosity, living in the United Arab Emirates, in Abu Dhabi, showing, highlights of Dubai. And it's amazing. I get comments. Remember, the overall, the top sort of viewer base that I have is from the US. And then the UK. And it's remarkable. People leave comments like, where are these guys? And somebody will comment, it's the UAE. Where is the UAE? It's in the Middle East. What? This happens in the Middle East? Right. So, using social media, using YouTube to break down those negative stereotypes that this region has. And it's remarkable because I've had people, I think 2 years ago, we had a cat that died, and I vlogged that, because it was dear to us as a family. And somebody messaged, and he'd been following me for a while, and he said, I had no idea that Muslims were allowed to keep animals. And he said that it affected me because my dog passed away recently, and I saw this kind of certain level of, you're just like us.
So social media can help to dispel stereotypes and negative perceptions
Yeah.
about
I think
it.
it's really important, because
I had somebody come to my home when I'd been there a few years, and they walked in and said, "We've never been to a Muslim's home." And I was like, what? I mean, just breaking down that barrier, that fear. I mean, I joked about it to her, saying that no one ever leaves. We kind of eat you at the end of it. But, I was just surprised. We break down that stereotypical image where women are oppressed or you can't drive. People are shocked that I'm able to drive here. So there's small things through social media really helps, the image of Muslims, UAE.
Sure. How do you tackle that in podcasting,
It's
Nicola?
actually very similar to yourself. About 40% of my audience is actually from the States, and they are fascinated by the women that start businesses here. They are surprised that women have started businesses here. They are surprised that women are doing all these different things, and they're discovering through my podcast and then through obviously the rest of the media that particularly the UAE, it's massive when it comes to empowering women, and you'll probably find the same, and it's lovely. It is really lovely to help break down those barriers and help people see what really goes on here, because you guys all know what it's like here. It's a very empowering, positive, vibrant city we live in, and I think it's awesome that we're part of that.
And how do you Christina, in your community, a lot of them are women, are a lot of them just as active as the men, or do you find that the women are less so?
Mostly men, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is more dominated by men than women at this time?
Yes. Well,
yeah. We're counting on you.
Yeah, it's dominated by men. I think just like as an influencer, you become very responsible in what you put out there. So UAE DNA, I have been helping business stores, especially the small businesses, and it's very gratifying when they write you back and say, with the article that you wrote, an investor came to me. So I think it's very nice when, as an influencer, you have been able to help other people, especially the small businesses. So just like them, you really you become responsible when you have this kind of following,
Farrukh, when you have something that is as powerful as social media in your hands, how do you balance the business side of things and the social impact side of things? Keep it short so we can get everybody's opinion on it.
I'm trying to understand the question. Can you put it in other words?
Are you using social media as a business? Is it a business now, or is it a social enterprise?
Okay, I'll answer it from my viewpoint.
Yeah.
So the easiest platform to give an example of is Facebook. Facebook has two kinds of things. There's a Facebook profile and there's a Facebook page. So if you put my name into Facebook, there's Farrukh Naeem, the page, which is Farrukh Naeem, the business, the guy who's talking about how you can use social media. And there's Farrukh Naeem, the person, who Facebook limits to only connecting maximum with 5,000 people. So I have to be really, really picky. And that's where my family, friends, and very personal connections are. So that's that's an example I can give where there's you, the person, and there's you, the business.
Right.
Okay? And however, you might be surprised to know that most of my business comes from people who like me as a person. I think that's how business really works. This is my philosophy. I think that people like to do business with people who they respect. Even if I had a company, that's why when you're buying Apple, you're thinking Steve Jobs. When you're thinking of Microsoft, you're thinking, so there is a case for not just having a business, but also building a face for the business, right?
And so that's what social media does.
Yeah, social media lets you do that, and you can have that method in your madness, where there's the business that you're building, but you're also putting a face. Some of us, influencers, the person and the business is the same thing. So there might be Emkwan.com, Cristina.com, FarrukhNaeem.com, but we might have, Mohsen has another thing, which is, Emkwan reviews probably, right? So there are some of us who keep ourselves separate, but there are some of us, where we are the brands ourselves.
Emkwan, how do you tackle that? Emkwan, the business, and Emkwan, the person who's contributing socially to society.
Look, you get businesses that make money and then businesses that do charitable works at the same time. I really don't see much of a confusion. I think it's, you decide, for example, if I work with a particular brand, let's say Mont Blanc, which I've done recently, that's a paid campaign that I've done to help promote a particular product. But then perhaps I might do that on YouTube and Twitter, but then I might use Twitter to highlight a particular cause, which is a charitable cause, for example.
Are there certain brands that you would not work with?
I think, for
yeah.
me personally, as an influencer, as a content creator, I have the freedom in which I can choose the brands that I want to work with and not work with. That's the way that my setup is. And I've been very important, and I've very kind of made a point to keep it that way. I said last time as well, at the last event that we did, that there was a particular brand that approached me for some sponsorship. And I said, look, I can't do this. I turned down a sizable amount of money because this is a brand, A, that I don't consume, and B, as soon as I start doing so, all those 45,000 subscribers plus the 25,000 here, there, everywhere are going to be like, hey, Emkwan, this is not you,
Cristina, you're same situation, you have the same...
Yeah, yes, as an influencer, you have to work with brands that you really believe in and you really like, because you cannot fake it on social
If you fake
media.
it, you lose your followers.
Yes, and they will know because they've been following you and they know the tone you are telling them, and suddenly you tell something else.
We had another question here.
Hi. So I have 3 questions. First of all,
Keep them brief.
Yeah. Do you earn money from this? Or is this your full-time job? Do you have another job? And if you do have another job, where do you find the time to do this and do your full-time job?
I'll answer that really briefly.
We make up hours.
Yes, I recently got a license actually because there was so much time sink involved in what I did that it was becoming silly. I do 7 days a week. I'm on my phone all the time. So now being able to charge companies pays for my time, because there's a lot of work that goes into Abu Dhabi Q&A. We've had over 100,000 people request to join. We take less than half of those. So yeah, I make just a maximum of 2 adverts a week, and that covers enough of our time. And it's very non-intrusive.
My key is time management. Really, I have a schedule. It's a 6-day-a-week schedule. And it's literally income-making times and passive times. And then I schedule that. So Hendel is my day job. So Hendel takes a large part of that. My podcast, I do 1 podcast a week. I generally focus on that on a Sunday. And then the rest of the week focus on my day job. And then I use scheduling tools like Buffer, Hootsuite. You guys probably will use them as well. Using tools really makes you more efficient. But you have to, in that moment, it's so easy to be distracted by a message that appears on Facebook or on Twitter. It's so easy. You have to focus. Time management, focus, schedule. That's and efficiency. That's how you do it.
Mine's a little bit different because it's very community-based. So often, if I don't check my inbox, for example, I get people with desperate messages. There was a lady with prenatal depression, so severe, she'd packed her bag, ready to leave, hadn't told her husband. I was going to walk out the door, and she said, I thought to message you. She's never met me. She's just been in my group. And she was poured her heart out in a message. I could have missed that over the weekend. I sat down till 3 o'clock in the morning exchanging messages with her. And I met her with a group of ladies that same week. We met for a coffee. And she cried her eyes out to us. And we created a WhatsApp. We talked to her. She's now the mother of a lovely little boy, and she got through this. So for me, I kind of worry about my members. I think, gosh, what if I miss a message? What if someone needs a connection to something? So for me, it's a little bit different that I'm always switched on.
How do you handle the laws of the country? In some situations, you might... you might have somebody talking to you. You don't know whether to talk to the police. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky.
You have to be very careful, and I'm very straightforward. People are just grateful that you respond, because often they tell me, look, admins never respond. I'm really surprised you did. So even if I can't help them, I tell them that, and I say, well, there is this authority. Ask them, ask this. But I will try and direct them to a legal authority. or I will have a little chat with them. But you have to be careful what you write
Definitely.
because people screenshot and they hold you to every single full stop. So I always try and be nice to everybody because you can ruin someone's day or you can make, like this lady who almost left the country.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm very engaged with my members and money is very secondary to me. I've got a license now to pay for the crazy time I spend on the net, but for me it still remains members, the community, connecting them, helping them.
And doing
my
it
family here, they will
responsibly.
tell you, it drives them nuts. I'm on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
And-
I actually have a 9 to 5. I'm a lecturer at a vocational college. And then the spare time that I have, I run the YouTube channel, the consultancy, and then, whatever other time, which is scheduled in, gets spent with family. So it's just a balancing act. I'm not sure my wife will say that I do a good job of it, but I suppose we all have 24 hours in the day. It's just about being sort of careful, setting schedules. And the other thing is, once you're a regular content creator, you've got to get into the habit of being punctual. All of the algorithms, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, will reward those people that are regular. So even if you're doing it once a week, but consistently, particularly on YouTube, your content is going to be promoted through the algorithms that they run. So bear that in mind as well.
Farrukh?
I would like to answer that question about balancing and the money. There's two parts of that question. How do you balance? And, are you guys earning enough? So I think most of the people in this world are at a place where, okay, I need to do this to earn this kind of money. But that's not where my heart is. And there's the other thing, I would love to talk about this and do this and review this and, just take food shots and get paid for it, right? So most of us are, closer to this, where we've got a 9 to 5 job, but that pays the bills. And Abu Dhabi has very high bills. And then if we have, this is our, wow, there's this guy, all he does is YouTube and he makes millions of bucks, right? So, what you could focus on, the good news is that anyone can do this, okay? The good news is that you can have that life, but you need to have an entrepreneurial streak. So like anything else, there would be a transition from, this is my 9 to 5, I start putting in, say, 30 minutes or 1 hour per day and get into the habit, and then you get into what all of these guys are doing, which is time management, delegation, automation, as much as you can, and then if a time comes where you're good enough, you're providing value, you're able to, after this talk, maybe I could even give you some tips on how to get noticed by brands, for example, and start bringing the money in, okay? So you can start making that transition, don't just take the leap of faith yet, do it slowly, and there might come a time, and I'm sure if you're really, putting your heart and passion into this, there could come a time where, say, you're making 20,000 in your job, and you're making 20,000, or you're making 10,000 in half time in social media. So that might be an indication that if you put the rest of the time and quit your job, you can do 10 plus 10, 20, right? And so Freya just mentioned, and I think that's an important point, if you see yourself going that route and the regulations, mark my words, are coming, if you're making money, most of the Western world has this, you have to have a disclaimer. You have to say, I'm getting paid, I'm doing this, I'm getting paid for this. The UAE doesn't have that law yet, but the US does, right? And those laws are coming. Some of them are already in place. But then, if that's what you want to do, fine. The UAE is also there's already a license for people doing business on social media. Currently, it's only for people who are Emirati and Khaliji, that's GCC citizens. It might expand to expats at some point. So know what you want to do, know where you want to go, start slow. It is possible, it can be done. And many of us here, and Freya's just started, the last time we met, she just started, building a revenue model and she's just registered her company. I think none of us are full-time YouTubers at this point, but I think that is achievable. You can do it, but you got to plan and focus and have a plan.
And I think the message is to really be responsible. Some things are just so intuitive and logical. You know exactly what to do and what not to do, and so I think that's very important.
You really didn't go into social media and you want to be an influencer. So it doesn't happen overnight. So all of us here are very passionate in what we do. That that built up our following, you know. So you have to do something that you really, really want to do.
How many hours do you put in, Christina?
I'm very lucky because I'm a social media strategist, so I'm always online. So 6 hours a day.
6 hours a day.
That's
a commitment.
That number.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
Because you are targeting to people to connect with you.
Okay, I have a trick for people who don't want to put in any time. Who wants to know? How to be an influencer without putting any time on social media? Who wants to know? No one wants to know? Okay. Some people want to know.
It's really not 6 hours. You can do it in a little time now, yeah?
0 hours. I'll give you an example. Live, real case study. So go on Instagram, okay? There is an account called Abu Dhabi Images. Very relevant to everybody sitting here. It was started last year with I think 0 followers, or I remember 2,000 followers last year. I focused on it, completely organic. It's crossed 12,000 in a year. And the goal is to be the Instagram with the best Abu Dhabi images. The best. I don't want to be the biggest account. There are 80,000, 9,000 followers. However, if you see the top posts on any Abu Dhabi hashtag, chances are you would find in that grid of 9 images, one image from Abu Dhabi every other day. Okay? I don't spend any time on it. I just delegated it. So I built a system. Now this is the entrepreneur mindset I was talking about. I built a system. And there's another thing to the lady there was asking, like, you know, if everybody's creating content, how can you be different, right? So I'll answer that. You don't have to have your own content. Abu Dhabi Images is none of my content. I've created a system where somebody who I've delegated it to finds the best images of Abu Dhabi, credits the photographer, asks people to follow them, right? So here's a trick, right? You don't have to be a content creator. You can be somebody who puts the best content together in one place. And then you just make a system, and the system is what? Name of photographer, what is the location of this image, please follow this photographer, and I'm supporting the guy, so he's coming back and saying, thank you for featuring my photo. I went from 2,000 to 12,000 in a year, and someone's doing it, I think, for 30 minutes a day.
I think that's called a content curator.
Yeah.
See?
Curator.
Boom, boom, boom.
And you can be an influencer, so I already have brands coming to me and saying, hey, can you put this on your Abu Dhabi Images page? And I did spend first 3 months training the person who's doing it, and now they're doing it on their own.
That's a great tip, Farrukh. Thank you so much. Now we have to wrap up, so going around this way, a quick tip for each person. Freya, you give your tip, and then we move here, and we close this session. Freya, your tip?
Yeah, be consistent. Be prepared to put a lot of time into this, and find the platform you're most comfortable in. Don't overstretch yourself with a Twitter, an Instagram, a Facebook. No, just focus on 1 or 2 and just keep at it, and then finally it will all click into place.
Nicola, your tip? Your big tip for the audience here?
My tip is don't be shy to use video and audio. Really, people want to know who you are. They want to know the personality behind whatever it is you're doing. So don't be afraid to use Facebook Live. Go on there, make a statement, make a story, make action. And the same with podcasts. Don't be shy to record key conversations and then share them. You'll be amazed how people will find you and connect with you. So those are my top tips.
Great. Cristina, what are your tips for LinkedIn? How can
it's really the same. Like you are your person, you know. You are who you are online. Mm-hmm. So it should match your online persona and your offline persona.
So you have to have integrity and you have to be authentic.
Yeah, you are who you are online.
You are, okay. Emkwan, your tips?
I think focus on what you have a passion for. Do it and be consistent in doing it, and just enjoy it. Because if you enjoy what you do first, everything else will fall into place. The money will come, the attention will come, but people gravitate towards people that are passionate about what they do. And passion at the moment is something that we desperately need. If you're passionate about something, just go and do it. And social media is a perfect tool to make that public.
That's a great tip. So guys, go out and experiment and share content, and please tag us. You have all of our handles here, so tag us with any content that you want to share.
We're already getting friend requests thanks to these slides.
Great, excellent. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone.